Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. I am so honored to be here with you today. We have an exciting and phenomenal program for you today. Today, this whole program is dedicated to Black History Month. I think it's a very important month. It's a month of relevance. It's a month of observation as well. And I feel like that, as one of my friends told me, actually, she suggested, she said, Henry, why don't you do some shows on Black History Month? This is February. And you know what? When she told me that, I never even doubted it. I shoved all my episodes that I had for the month of February. I pushed those to the side. And I'm not saying those episodes are not important, but right now what is important is the moment, and that is Black History Month. And I appreciate all of my friends that's on the panel tonight. What's going to happen is that I'm going to ask each person who in Black history has inspired them in some way. And I think Taryn was telling me last week if it can be more than one. And I told him, yes, it can be. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone historical. Mine are going to be historical. It can be a great aunt. It can be your mom, whoever it is in Black history that has inspired you in a impactful way. But before we get started, I would like to ask. We'll start with Shawana. I want everyone to introduce themselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, and what do you do, and then we'll get into the rest of the program.
Hi, my name is Shawana, and I am from Brooklyn, North Carolina, and I am a former middle school teacher, but I'm chilling now. Hey, everybody.
What about you, Terry?
Hey, Shawana. Thank you, Henry, and good evening to everybody. My name is Taryn Harris, and I live here in West Memphis, Arkansas. I work for the West Memphis School District. I'm in maintenance, and been there for going on 14 years.
That's a long time.
Yep, longest job I've ever had.
My friend, Pastor Weaver, you're from Texas, right?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. So glad to be on this panel with everyone on tonight. I am Pastor Elgina Weaver. I am the senior pastor of the Century Chapel Christian Methodist Episcopal Church here in the city of Sacramento, California. I'm excited to be here. Nice to know that somebody else cuts it short, because I'm otherwise known as Pastor E. That's what most people call me. I hail from the great state of Texas. And for the moment, God moved me out here to let my little light shine here on the West Coast. So I, again, I'm happy to be a part of this on tonight. Brother Henry and I go back a little ways, and I just am honored to be here with you all.
Joanne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Joanne McPhee Maldonado. You probably saw Maldonado on the little flyer. That's actually my married name. I am from Delaware. I was born and raised here, lived here most of my life. I lived in Florida for a little while, but then I came back. I work for an organization called Women of Welcome, which is helping women in the evangelical space to understand our responsibility to love our neighbors from other lands. So I'm a little bit in the immigration space. And I also co-host a Be the Bridge to Racial Reconciliation discussion group and a couple of other groups where we're discussing racial issues. So I am really honored to be here with you guys, and I'm looking forward to learning from all of you tonight. So thank you for having me. Thanks, Henry, for inviting me.
My pleasure. And Pastor Dean, and you and your wife, such an honor to have y'all on tonight. Tell us a little about what you guys do.
All right, I'll let her go ahead. Hi, I am Andra, and I used to work as a cognitive therapist, but like Shawana, I'm just chilling right now. Um, but we are from Kansas City, and we are now residing in Pennsylvania. We've been here for a month now, so I'm enjoying that so far. So that's about all I got from me. I'm in seminary right now, going for my master's degree in divinity at the moment. So
Good.
I'm busy with that. But I think that's about it about me.
That's
Sounds
good.
good. So yes, again, I'm Pastor D. Dion is my name. Like she said, we just moved here to Pennsylvania, where I was called to be the pastor of a United Church of Christ church here. But we are, how about them Chiefs? Kansas City.
Yeah.
Nice plug.
So I've been chatting with Henry over Facebook for probably a couple of years now, I believe, Henry. And he's a part of the ministry that I created, Whosoever Community of Faith. And that's how we became acquainted. And Mr. Taryn, I've been calling Mr. Mount, announcing your name, and I certainly apologize for that. But
That's
glad
all
to
right,
be here.
Pastor D.
Yes, glad to be here with all of you all, and my girl, Miss Shawana. We was hanging out the last time, chilling. So glad to see you again. Good to meet you.
Excuse me. Thank you all so much for being on the program today. And this is going to be exciting. I'm going to ask all of you who has inspired you in Black history. After each person responds, if there's someone who wants to elaborate on that person, we can do so. We're going to start with Shawana. But before we get started, actually, I think my other friend is tuning in now.
Hey,
Hey, where you been?
I couldn't get on. It kept asking me for a passcode, so I had to set up my phone instead because on the computer it's asking me for a passcode.
Oh, okay. It's really good to see you. Would you mind introducing yourself to everyone? Tell us who you are and what you do and where you're from.
No problem. I am Dr. Danny Lee Harris, and what I do now is I'm a master life coach, a retired police officer, and retired professor. I live in Atlanta, Georgia now. Presently residing in Atlanta, Georgia, looking to move soon. And that's who I am. I'm an author, and I'm a person that's a motivator of people to live their best life now.
That's awesome. Well, Dr. Harris, it's such an honor to have you on the Brother Henry and You show tonight. We're going to have a great program. As I was saying earlier, I'm going to ask each person who has inspired them historically. It don't matter who it is, but we're going to start with Shawana, then we'll work our way around. After each person has expounded on who has inspired them, if there's someone who would like to add to what they said or elaborate, please feel free to. I promise not to hold you guys too long. There's a couple people in Black history that inspired me, and I'm going to be honest. There are several of them, but I only limited mine down to two. That's just me. And it was really hard because these people are powerful. they got a really great story. So it took me today. It took me 3 hours. I was just sitting down, just doing research. It took me 3 hours to come up with who has inspired me in Black history. And Rosa Parks was the main one that came to my mind. As you know, she was an American activist in the civil rights movement. She was considered the first lady of civil rights. I didn't know that till I did my research. What I find most inspiring about her story is what I find most inspiring about her story is not only her resilience, but the fact that she was unwilling to give up her seat. She was arrested, as many of you know, because she didn't give up her seat to a white passenger. Blacks in that time, as many of you know, had to sit in the back of the bus. Her arrest sparkled a 381-day Boy Scout of the Montgomery bus system. But what's really interesting is, based on my research, she went from sitting in the back of the bus to later in time, we ended up electing the first Black president of the United States, Barack Obama, and as of recently, the first vice president, who happens to be a woman, by the way. I think that's amazing.
Woo!
So it's amazing how it went from the back of the bus to now in power. I think that's great. She surely paved the way for so many. So tonight, I just want to say thank you, Rosa Parks, for sitting down so many Blacks today can stand up in power. The last person who inspired me was Dr. Maya Angelou. She was an American poet and a civil rights activist. She was really known for her acclaimed 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing, and her life of excellence. What inspired me about her is, how do you go from nothing to becoming one of the most powerful women, not only in the Black community, but around the world? Of course, as many of you know, if you've done your research, she was abused. She was raped at the age of 8 by her mother's boyfriend and frightened by her own tongue. She went several years, and this was her choice, choosing just not to say nothing at all. She didn't speak at all. Well, tonight I just want to celebrate Dr. Maya Angelou, and not only celebrate her. I just want to say I am glad that she overcame those obstacles, those challenges, and those adversities that she's faced in life, and had the courage to finally start speaking again. Because if she had not spoken, many Black girls wouldn't be who they are today. If she had not spoken, many Blacks in the world would be filled with fear, uncertainty, and confusion. If she had not spoken, and this is my favorite part, I myself would have never had the opportunity to interview her shortly before her passing away in 2014. And that was one of the most defining experiences I've ever had in my life. So tonight, I just want to also say not only thank you to Rosa Parks, but also to Dr. Maya Angelou. And in her own words, she is a phenomenal woman. Now, those are the people that have inspired me. I'm gonna start with Shawana. Tell us who in Black history has inspired you, and tell us why also.
Gotcha.
And I want to let everyone know that Shawana has to leave like in the next 10 minutes or so. So, but we appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Henry. Well, as my shirt says, it says we out. My person of choice is Harriet Tubman. Yeah. Everyone knows about Harriet Tubman. We know her as the Moses of her people. Let my people go. She was a conductor of the Underground Railroad, born in Eastern Shores, Maryland. As a slave, of course, she escaped to Pennsylvania to get freedom. And from that, she decided that I guess she just wanted to help free some more. And I'm trying to shorten up my story, y'all, so I can, get on off. But one thing that I admire about Harriet Tubman is that she was fearless, to do that and to go back to get more people and go back and keep going back. You had to be fearless. She was fearless and she was selfless. She cared about others. It wasn't all about her. It was about helping her other people, breaking them from bondage. I found interesting, because I really didn't know too much about this, that she suffered from like migraines and seizures, and she had some vivid dreams that she believed came from God, that pretty much what inspired her to take these trips and bring her people up north towards freedom. One of the most famous quotes from Harriet Tubman was, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if they knew they were a slave." And why that stood out to me so much was because when my 18-month-old son Levi passed away, January 24th, made it a year. He passed away a year ago. And from his death, I experienced spiritual growth. And the spiritual growth that I experienced freed my mind, And one thing about Harriet Tubman is I consider her a ascended master. She knew what she was doing. She was a Jesus of her time. She stood up for the oppressed. And I feel like with my experience and going through the death of my son and my spiritual growth, it opened my mind to the freedom of thinking, freedom from religion, freedom to be me, freedom to love, freedom to help the oppressed, freedom to fight for our rights, freedom to be who we want to be. Just freedom all in general. So that's why I chose Harriet Tubman as my lady to represent my person for Black, that I love for Black History Month. And I just feel like, once we get out of that, that bondage mindset, especially places that I don't want to get too much into religion. I don't want to step on anybody's toes or anything like that. But once we break free from that mindset and we understand how free and how loved we are, life is just amazing. And that's how we develop more Harriet Tubmans, more Barack Obamas, more if anybody else that we sit here, Maya Angelou, more people that I could also consider ascended masters, who mastered their life and made a humongous difference in this world today. And that's my person, Harriet Tubman. I'm out. Thank you, Henry, for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shawana. And I hope you have an amazing night, okay?
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right. We have Pastor Weaver. Who inspired you in Black history, and tell us why?
The person on tonight that I wanted to highlight that inspired me in Black history is none other than Fannie Lou Townsend Hamer, or Hamer. I was always intrigued by her story because of her perseverance, because she didn't allow being different or not being a part of a certain stereotype. She didn't allow that to hold her back. She was a great leader as far as civil rights. She did much work in the state of Mississippi in order to get people to have voting rights. She ended up being the vice chair of the Freedom Democratic Party, as well as the co-founder of the National Women's Political Caucus. I think she laid a lot of groundwork for what Abrams did in the state of Georgia in order for us to be where we are today. But I looked at her journey of working in the cotton fields, of seemingly coming from nothing, and yet arising to be this very strong voice. She used much of her religious background when she would go and she would speak to people as far as civil rights. She would sing hymns and allow her voice to draw people. One of the most famous quotes of hers is, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." And many of us have used that on our journey in life ourselves. I was intrigued that as she grew up on the plantation, they were noting her for being able to pick so much cotton during the day, but she was able to work her way up to have the trust of slave owners, and she was able to converse and engage with other slave owners, which in essence gave her that education that you get from being hands-on. And although she was not formally educated, she received many honorary degrees throughout the South, and even some in the North. And so I just love that she took her difference to make a difference. And I believe that that's something that I do myself, because sometimes we get caught up in how people look and the perception of the people, and we really don't know the depth of what they can do and what they can become and how they can draw others to be better. And I think that's what she did on her journey. Of course, there were many times that she felt like the Ku Klux Klan was going to kill her. She was mocked. She was brutalized at times, but yet she kept going. She died at the age of 59. And the last thing I want to say is, we have this issue with pro-life and pro-choice, but there in Mississippi, she went in to have a simple surgery, and she ended up having a hysterectomy because that's what the doctor decided to do without her consent. They now term it as the Mississippi appendectomy, meaning that you go in for one thing and you end up losing something else. And although she wanted to have children, she was unable to do that. In essence, the doctor made the decision for her, took that from her. But again, she was able to use her life and her journey to inspire others to be great. And so again, I love people. I live my own life and embrace my difference, knowing that I truly make a difference in the lives of other people. Fannie Lou Townsend Hammer.
Awesome.
Girl, you done your homework. That was great. Pastor Dean, tell us who has inspired you in Black history, and tell us why.
Well, the person that I am most interested in at this time of my life is more of a history maker, not so much in history, but he's making history, and that would be Bishop Carlton Pearson. The reason that I am so intrigued by this bishop, by this man, is that he decided to break down those traditional walls within the church. And it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of God, and it takes a lot of Jesus to do that. And it takes a lot of faith in oneself and also in our Creator. So Bishop Carlton felt like that the gospel of inclusion was important. And actually, it is very important. But when we speak about it or when we bring it to the forefront, not everyone believes that that is the truth, that God loves all of us equally and individually. So what Bishop Carlton did was to step out and say, hey, God loves all of us. And what a lot of people connected to the LGBTQ community, which was big, but Carlton Pearson also welcomed those who were non-Christians, those who did not believe the same, who did not look the same, who may have done things in their lives that the church would have turned them away. And he just stepped up in a mighty way within the church that he grew up in, he was a part of, and allowed those bishops, okay, to put him out of the religious spaces that he knew. And he did that. He lost everything, but God gave him back what he needed to do the work that he's doing today. So when I think about Carlton Pearson, of course, the Come Sunday movie came out, and who knows, right? Who knows?
A
Only
good
Bishop
movie.
Carlton knows exactly how that happened. But for him to step out and tear down such thick walls, when we speak of spirituality and when we speak of God and when we speak of the church, those are thick walls to break through. We've been taught, and things have been embedded within us to learn and understand this is how this goes, and this is who God loves, and when we venture out to find out for ourselves exactly what John 3:16 means when it says whosoever, um, it can cause us to be put out, excommunicated, not loved, and looked at in a totally different light. And Bishop Carlton, um, he's not. I don't think he wanted any trouble. And, if he did, he wanted to get into some good trouble.
Yeah.
But he went against, and this is hard, and I don't mean to offend any of us, but he went against the black church, and the black church is so hard
Yeah.
to to get with. When we talk about, hey, how about Jesus did love her, him, and whoever they are, and whoever whatever they've done, and we don't understand why, but for him to step out and to be willing to lose those things in order to gain the inclusion and the love of all of God's people, and the backing that he had with Dr. Yvette Flunder and the United Church of Christ. I'm just connected with all of that. And when I thought about, who has made a difference in my life right now in the space that I'm in, would be Bishop Carlton Pearson.
That's awesome, and thank you. Is there anybody that has inspired her that she would like to share? Your wife?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were talking about me for a second there. I was so intrigued with what everybody was saying. But anyway, yeah, there is one person. Well, it's many people actually. So it was really hard to narrow someone down.
Yeah.
But um, the person that I did choose was Audre Lorde, and the reason why I chose her is because she was an activist. She was a feminist. She was a poet, and by her own words, she was a warrior, a poet, a lesbian, and a mother. And she spoke out against racism, sexism, and homophobia. She was born in New York, and she was born in 1934. And she just accomplished so many different things. Um, she started a foundation in South Africa for women, and I can't remember the name of it at the moment. I think it was Sisters Helping Sisters in South Africa, so that they could have a voice. She used her poetry, her words, to give voice to those who felt that they did not have a voice. One of her quotes was, "Silence will not protect you." So she encouraged people to use their voices and to speak out against the things that they felt were that was injustice. She encouraged people to speak out for those things. One of the things that really inspired me from her was why she started writing poetry. She said that poetry, she would communicate in poetry. She would read poems and memorize poems. And when people would ask her, how was she that day, or how was her day, how is she feeling, she would remember a poem that she had read, and she would recite that poem. And one of the things in the poem that explained how she was feeling, that's how she would describe her day, or answer their question. And then when she ran out of those poems to describe
her feelings and to speak out for herself, that's when she started writing her own poetry. And that was when she was about 12 or 13 years old. So that's one of the things that really inspired me because for myself, it's hard sometimes for me to communicate my own feelings or articulate how I feel. And I find myself when the best way sometimes for me to articulate and to let people know how I feel is through my writing and through my poetry. So when I read that about her, I was just kind of fascinated because I was like, wow, I resonate with that because that's exactly how I do now, how I did before and how I do now. I think one of the things that really stood out for me as well is she had a 14-year battle with breast cancer. She wrote a poem about cancer. She had a mastectomy, and during that time, they provided or they had the prosthesis. They were available then, but she did not want to have that because she didn't want the stigma of, oh, it looks like nothing's wrong or it looks just like it's normal and everything. But she didn't want that. She wanted people to know her battle. She wanted people to know her struggle with breast cancer, and she wanted people to know that she was a survivor as well. She did end up succumbing to breast cancer in 1992. She passed away at the age of 58 years old. But she's the person who inspires me to this day to write and to speak out and to use my voice for those who feel that they don't have a voice, especially with the LGBTQ community, because she was out there during the time when being in the LGBTQ community was not popular. But one of her quotes that I had written down is that it is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability um, to recognize and celebrate those differences. So she was all about unity and bringing people together. And sometimes she got accused of basically like kind of using her words to tear people apart, but it wasn't that. If you read between her lines, you can see that she was really about unity and bringing people together.
That was so beautiful, and I just think it's amazing, and to see so many. And of course, there are powerful men in history, but I'm more intrigued to see how powerful women are, especially where they've come from, not having the ability to vote and to become like the lady you had just talked about. So many powerful women in history. I just think that's amazing.
Come on, put those hands together. Anybody glad he did what he said? I'm ready to have a little church. Oh,
Dr. Harris, who has inspired you in history, and tell us why? And it's so good to see you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Henry. I appreciate it. You guys can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. The person who inspired me the most in my life is the late Carol Ann Nelson. That would be my mother. And the reason why is because she was my foundation for life, not only physically, but to see somebody young, single, 5 children, go through as much as my mother went through in life. It set the foundation and the structure for me to learn how to deal with adversity in life and how to basically overcome things by changing perspective, which, believe it or not, has led me on this long path to become who I am and what I do to this day. And I think it was really just really delving into my mother's history and her life and all the struggles that she went through. She died at the young, tender age of 40 years old when I was a senior in high school. When she left, it was just my sister who was 18 and myself who was 17, and we were left to raise the 3 younger siblings to try to keep them out of the foster care system because she had just gotten us out of the foster care system after some years of being in the system. So my sister who was 18 and I was 17, we decided to keep the younger ones from going back through the system. So we raised them to adulthood, and that just set the foundation of strength, of tenacity, and of understanding one very important thing that I deliver in all that I do today, which is life happens for us. It doesn't happen to us. It's all about how you change your perspective on life and things. I watched my father slice my mother's neck when I was 8 years old from ear to ear. And she didn't die from that, but watching that, but it was how she handled him and the situation after that that really absolutely changed my perspective of forgiveness, of love, and what it meant to be true to who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
She should have been bitter. She should have been really, really hateful to this man, and she never did. She never kept her kids from him. And she always said to me, "You will find out who your father is as you get older. I will never keep you from him, and I'll never tell you to not like your father. Love your father." And that right there, and then that happened when I was 8. And it wasn't until I was 17, when I was looking over my mother's casket, that I absolutely saw for the first time in my life, from the time that it happened to the time she died, and saw the scar on my mother's neck from ear to ear. We had never seen the scar. And at that very precise moment, my father came into the room, into the funeral home, and he put his hand on my shoulder. And I'm looking at that. And he put his hand on my shoulder. So I look at him. And then I look back down and I shrug my shoulder. And then he looks down. And for the first time since he did it, he actually saw the scar as well. And then my sister came in and she saw it as well. So, I say all that to say, it was after that I absolutely understood how strong this woman was in life and even in death, how she really set the foundation for all of her children, because all 5 of us have the same foundational principles about strength and about love, and about, most importantly, about forgiveness. Because to me, forgiveness is the number one thing that holds us back from living our fulfilled life. Once you have mastered forgiveness, and I learned it at a young age, once you've mastered forgiveness, you absolutely can free and break any chain in life. And that right there is freeing within itself. You can pray all you want, you can meditate all you want, but if you don't know or learn how to forgive, sincerely forgive and wish well on others, even when they do you harm, you are absolutely living a life of pain, inner pain, stress, and a life filled with change. So the late Carol Ann Nelson is my hero, my shiro. She was the strongest woman I've ever met in my life, even to this day. And she has set me up with the principles of life that will carry me and has helped me to live a very fulfilled, happy, and peaceful life in general.
That's profound, and thank you for sharing that as well. I really enjoyed hearing who inspired you. Taryn Harris, tell us
Yeah.
who has inspired you and tell us why.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Henry. Well, the person who has inspired me, and it's a number of people, but he's not known like worldwide like a lot of people that's been mentioned, but he's well known here in this local area where I live. And he's one of my former pastors, Dr. S.J. Parker, former pastor of First Missionary Baptist Church here in West Memphis. And he pastored there from 1961 up until his retirement in 2009. So almost 50 years. And I was a member there for 10 of those years, from 1995 until 2005. And during that time, he taught me so many things that I feel will carry me throughout the remainder of my life. He used to drop these little nuggets of wisdom. And now, mind you, I was much younger at that time, so I used to kind of not pay attention to some of that stuff he said. But as I've gotten older, now I can look back and see where a lot of the lessons that he taught us were valuable. I mean, stuff that you can't even pay money to learn, like in college or anything. But one very important lesson that he taught was the concept of good stewardship. And now here it is, I guess about almost 20 years later. And I still remember that one particular sermon like it was yesterday. And it wasn't really a sermon per se. It was more teaching than preaching.
Yeah.
And, I think about some of the things that I've had throughout the years, like cars and clothes and shoes and jewelry and stuff. When I was younger, I used to take a lot of stuff for granted. Like, I was supposed to have these things because either I worked for it, I bought it with my money or whatever. And then I was trying to impress a lot of people, which was a big mistake. Going out spending money on stuff that I really couldn't afford in order to look good in front of folk who really didn't care. But now I'm at a point where, I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore with stuff, because, stuff loses its value anyway. Cars depreciate in value, clothes, they go out of style, shoes wear out, jewelry tends to tarnish if you don't polish it or whatever. And the so-called friends that you're trying to impress, they could care less. They're not really studying you anyway. So I appreciate a lot more now the things that I have, and really it's about the simple things in life that matter. I mean, you don't have to. It's not about how much money you have or the possessions. I mean, as long as you got peace of mind, good health, and things like that. I mean, as long as you got all that, you're blessed. I mean, it's not about all this material stuff, because like another pastor said, either at some point, either it's gonna leave you or you're gonna leave it.
Yeah.
So he really taught me that lesson, how to appreciate things, whatever it is.
That's good, Taryn, and thank you so much. I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking about that today as well. How it's the small things in life that really matters. And I'm glad you learned that lesson from your former pastor. My beautiful friend, Joanne, I'm so glad you're on. Tell us who in Black history has inspired you, and tell us why. And then after that, we're going to ask Pastor D to close us in prayer.
Okay. Well, I just want to be really transparent in saying that I'm very new to the space of Black history and Black accomplishments. And, when I think back over my life of what really influenced me in learning about these things, I think about, when I was 15, I saw the color purple. And I think that was probably the first time I had a real glimpse into, the struggles that come along with being a Black person in America. And I had always loved, Whoopi Goldberg. I loved her humor. I loved, I loved Oprah's show, of course. We all watched Oprah. But I think seeing them in those particular roles just gave me a little more of something to connect to. Because as we all know, history is very whitewashed, and there isn't a whole lot of truth told, or we get like a little bit of slavery, a little bit of Jim Crow, a little bit of civil rights, and then boom, the laws changed and we're all good, right? Like everything's perfect now. And of course we know that's not how it works. So I feel as though where I'm at in my journey right now is that I am still discovering the horrific things that have happened in this country. And I don't feel that I can properly appreciate the accomplishments of people from Black history until I really fully understand the struggle and the things that they came through. So if it's okay with you, what I would like to do instead is honor some people that have really meant a lot in my life and who have helped me along this journey to learn the things that I'm learning. So the first person would be my friend who also calls me sister, and what an honor that is. Her name is Kim Nixon, and she was the first person probably 6 years ago that had a conversation with me, letting me know why my mindset was one that was based in racism. The things that I was saying, she was able to really call me out and to say, this is not, what you're saying is not what you think you're saying. I have wonderful sisters that have been in these discussion groups with me. I just like to mention them quickly: Tasha Stewart, Bonita Jones, Cheryl Berry, Jalen Powell, Sharon Allen, and Erica Wright. I have another very close sister, Angel Kelly. I just want to honor her for, she's a pastor with her husband. She has what's called a boot camp identity that she does with young Black women, where she pours into them to help them realize their potential and to live their best life. And she's also a business owner. My friend and mentor, Carl Thompson, who is a PhD. He's an associate professor of microbiology and the director of graduate studies at Howard University. He was recognized in the list of 1,000 inspiring Black scientists in America. And he has allowed me to send him videos, when people send me the Candace Owens video and say, well, what about this? And, and he's just really poured into me. And I just appreciate him and his wife, Lenny, so much. She is an educator of children with disabilities. And in the past, she was a law enforcement officer. Dr. Brenda Salter McNeil, who is a pastor, speaker, author, and leader in racial reconciliation for 30 years now. She actually inspires me daily. I keep quotes of hers on my computer because what I'm learning as I follow people of color is that there is a language that we do not have in the white church. And that language speaks about a God who changed systems, a God who changes governments, a God who changes the world, and so, and she also taught me not to waste time on people who don't want to listen. So that's a really valuable lesson. Jamar Tisby, who I'm sure you're all familiar with. He's the author of the New York Times bestselling The Color of Compromise, CEO of The Witness, and a PhD candidate in history at the University of Mississippi. Of course, he's called out the church extensively and beautifully for their complicity in racism, and I continue to learn from him as we're reading now his new book, which is How to Fight Racism. Brian Stevenson, who actually grew up 20 minutes down the road from me, who is the author of Just Mercy. He's an American lawyer, social justice activist, founder, executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative, and a law professor at New York University School of Law. And he taught me that there are different justice systems according to your skin color. So I feel that Black history is so important because the white population continues to miss the value of Black people in our country and really worldwide. Um, and unfortunately, there's been so much harm done and suffered by people of color that white people have a long way to go. You know, we need to acknowledge and repent and lament and start to build bridges because and Black history is such an important part of that, because if we don't ever own what happened, you know, we can't move forward. And so I just want to say that, you know, while I'm not well versed in Black history, I do understand its value, and I'm continuing to learn, and I'm looking forward to learning more, because I do believe that, you know, that the will of God is that we function as, you know, a multicolor, cultural, multifaceted bride, right? That's what Jesus is longing for. And so I just want to close by saying that, you know, I think about the concept of shalom a lot, which in the Bible, you know, is basically, people say shalom and they think it's just peace, but it's actually this concept of we belong to one another. And if one of us is not doing well, then all of us are not doing well. And if one of us is doing well, or if all of us are doing well, then we're all doing well, right? And so I'm hopeful, you know, in the light of things that have gone on in this past year that have been really devastating, that people are waking up, and I'm just grateful to walk alongside my brothers and sisters from, you know, from all backgrounds and all colors, to see us come to that place where we're all valued together. So thank you so much for letting me share.
That's awesome. And thank you for being with us tonight, too, Joanne. We appreciate your presence. It's been a wonderful night. It's been a wonderful show. And I appreciate everyone for taking the time to share who has inspired you historically. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I learned some stuff about that I didn't know about certain people. And so it was a learning experience for me. I don't know everything, but I feel like we learn from each other. Um, I remember years ago, I sat with a pastor. He had been in ministry for over 70 years. And at that time, I was in ministry for about maybe 6 or 7 years. I said, how you stay in it that long? And he looked at, and I thought he would give me a long sermon or whatnot. He says, he just looked over at me and grabbed my hand. He says, stay teachable. And he's not just saying in the context of spirituality, but he's just saying in life, son, you may think at your age now that you know a lot, but the older you get, you'll find out that you didn't know as much as you thought you did. And that could be in the context of spiritualism, historical stuff. And just tonight I learned so much, and I really enjoyed the story from Dr. Harris. Your story was really, really moving about your mother. My mom inspires me a lot. Now, we talked on the phone, and when I talk to her, she don't want to get off the phone. And till this day, I don't care if you just turned 34, I can still spank you. It's like, okay, mom. So of course, you know, my mom inspires me as well. So it's been a great program. I want to ask everyone that's watching to comment. Let us know who in Black history has inspired you and impact your life today. And as we go to a close, I would like to ask Pastor Dean to close us in prayer.
Ultimate Creator, we thank you for this time that we have had together to share our thoughts and those who have impacted our lives. We thank you for the opportunity to know history and to learn history. We thank you for those who touch our hearts and our minds, from our mothers to our poets to our friends, and just all those people that we think of when we think about Black history. God, we ask that you continue to give us information and allow us to stay teachable, even in history and even in your word and even in this space and time. So we thank you for Henry. We thank you for the opportunity to be with him tonight. And we just ask, God, that you continue to bless and love on each and every one of us and give us what it is that you would have for us to move forward in this world. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
We hope you have enjoyed today's program. We want to connect with you. Visit us at facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show, or visit us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Henry Harris 100. We're so grateful you tuned in today and hope you have a fantastic day.